Welcome to this deep dive. We're looking at the really quite fascinating stories behind some everyday objects, the things we just don't think twice about.
Exactly.
Today we're diving into five: the ballpoint pen, scissors, eyeglasses, umbrellas, and believe it or not, forks.
It's amazing, isn't it? These things are just part of life now, but each one was, well, a pretty big deal when it first came along. Groundbreaking solutions.
Okay, let's start with the ballpoint pen. I mean, most of us probably clicked one today, right?
Oh, definitely.
But try to imagine before that. You had quills,
Yeah.
right, and fountain pens, always leaking, smudging.
Right. It was, well, messy. Writing was just slower, more involved. You had ink drying times. And yeah, those fountain pens could be a nightmare, especially, say, on a plane.
Ah, good point. So enter Laszlo Biro. He's a Hungarian journalist. This is back in 1938. And he has this great aha moment.
Yeah.
He's watching newspaper printing, sees how fast that ink dries, and thinks, why not for a pen?
That's such a clever connection to make, isn't it? Between industrial printing and, like, personal writing? Totally. He figured out the key wasn't the ink itself exactly, but how you deliver it. So instead of gravity feeding thin ink like a fountain pen, his idea was this tiny little ball bearing at the tip. It rolls, picks up thicker, quicker drying ink from inside, and just rolls it onto the paper.
Simple, but brilliant. No more smudges, hopefully.
Yeah.
But Biro's story gets complicated, right? He had to flee Europe because of the Nazis.
Yes. His journey took him to Argentina, and that's actually where he patented the pen in 1943. It shows how these bigger world events can really shape invention.
Definitely. And then there's the wartime connection. The British Royal Air Force, they needed pens that worked reliably at high altitudes.
Exactly. Fountain pens would just leak or stop working with the pressure changes up there. But the ballpoint, it was perfect. That military need gave it a huge boost.
Wow. Necessity really driving adoption there.
Yeah.
And then after the war, you get companies like BIC stepping in, right? Making
Yeah.
them super cheap, accessible.
That was the turning point for mass adoption, the 1950s. Suddenly, everyone could afford one. And now, what, billions are sold every year?
Billions. It's incredible. All from one journalist's observation. It really democratized writing in a way.
It absolutely did, making it cleaner, more convenient, just easier for everyone.
Okay, so from that fairly recent invention, let's jump way, way back. Let's talk scissors.
Ah, scissors. You'd think they've been around forever in their current form, but no.
Right. The earliest ones date back to, what, ancient Egypt? Around 1500 BCE. That's a long time.
A very long time. And those early ones, they weren't like ours. Think of two bronze blades connected at the handle end by a flexible metal strip, like a C-shape. Spring scissors.
Spring scissors, so you'd squeeze them.
Yeah, you'd squeeze them to cut. They worked for cloth, leather, hair, but they were kind of clunky, not very precise.
Okay, I can picture that. A bit awkward.
Yeah.
So when did the design we know show up?
That was the Romans. Around 100 CE, they came up with the big innovation, the pivot, crossing the blades and joining them with a pin in the middle.
Ah, the pivot. That makes sense. More leverage, more control.
Exactly. Much smoother cutting action. And we've actually found Roman scissors, like in Pompeii, that look remarkably similar to basic scissors today.
No way. So they were using them for tailoring, barbering.
Tailors, barbers, even surgeons, apparently. A really versatile tool, even back then.
But they weren't exactly common for everyone, were they? Even with the Roman design.
No, not for a long time. Through the Middle Ages, they were still pretty valuable, handcrafted items made by skilled metalworkers. They became really important, though, in the textile trade.
Right, for cutting all that cloth.
Then fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, and that changes everything. Mass production makes them cheap and widely available.
And yet that basic Roman pivot design,
Yeah,
it's still there in almost every pair you buy.
it really is. It's just a fundamentally good design that's lasted thousands of years. Simple, effective mechanics.
Amazing. Okay, so from cutting tools to something that literally changed how we see the world. Eyeglasses.
Oh, this is a huge one. Imagine being a scholar, a scribe, anyone who worked with text before eyeglasses.
Yeah, especially as you got older. Farsightedness kicks in. Reading gets harder and harder.
It must have been incredibly frustrating. It limited careers. It limited the spread of knowledge. So when eyeglasses first appeared, around 1290 in Italy, that was revolutionary.
Italy, right. Often credited to maybe Alessandro di Spina or Salvino d'Armate, though it's a bit hazy.
The exact inventor is debated, yeah. But the key thing was using convex lenses thicker in the middle to correct farsightedness.
How did that actually work? The convex lens.
Well, with farsightedness, light focuses behind your retina for close-up things, making them blurry. The convex lens bends the incoming light rays more, pulling that focal point forward onto the retina.
Okay, so it redirects the light.
Huh.
But the first glasses, they weren't like specs today, were they?
No, not at all. Very rudimentary. No arms or temples, as we call them. You either held them up to your eyes with your hand or sort of perched them on your nose.
Bit precarious.
Definitely. They evolved from earlier things called reading stones, basically polished crystals, magnifiers you'd lay on the page. Then came lenses set in frames, maybe wood or bone or metal, still handheld or balanced, though.
And where were these being made? Monasteries?
Monasteries were key centers, yes. Monks were doing a lot of reading and writing, so they had both the need and often the skills for grinding lenses.
Makes sense. And they spread pretty quickly,
Reasonably quickly across Europe, yeah. By the 1300s, they were becoming more known, and you start seeing them depicted in Renaissance paintings, often on learned figures.
which really shows their impact, right? Extending the productive lives of intellectuals, helping literacy.
Absolutely. It was a massive boost for learning and knowledge preservation. And later on, of course, you get innovations like concave lenses for nearsightedness and Benjamin Franklin famously inventing bifocals.
So from those early Italian monks grinding lenses to the lightweight, precise glasses we have today, quite a lineage.
It really is. Just think how much that simple piece of shaped glass changed human potential.
Incredible. Okay, let's shift gears. From helping us see to protecting us from the weather. Umbrellas.
Umbrellas. But here's the twist most people don't know.
Uh,
Their first job wasn't keeping off rain, it was keeping off the sun.
really. Sun protection.
Mm.
Way back when.
Way back. We're talking ancient Mesopotamia, maybe 2400 BCE. They were parasols used by royalty, by nobles, made from things like palm leaves or feathers. More about status than anything else.
So like a fancy sunshade held by an attendant.
Pretty much, yeah. Similar things in ancient Egypt, Assyria, China too. Symbols of power, definitely not for your average person. And they were fixed, often heavy.
Okay, so when did they become, actual umbrellas for rain and portable?
That big leap happened in China around the 1st century CE Han Dynasty. They invented collapsible umbrellas.
Collapsible, okay.
How? Using materials like bamboo for a light frame that could fold, and then waterproof silk or oiled paper for the canopy. Suddenly you had something you could carry easily and use for rain or sun.
That sounds much more practical. The flattening umbrella, they called it.
That's one term, yes. And because it was so useful, it started spreading along trade routes to Japan, Persia, eventually Europe by the Middle Ages.
But Europe was slow on the uptake for rain, weren't they? Still saw them as mainly for sun
Yeah.
and kind of feminine.
Yeah, that perception lingered for quite a while. In Europe, it was primarily a lady's accessory for sun protection initially. It took until maybe the 17th century for men to really start adopting them for rain, and even then, the early European ones were apparently quite heavy and awkward.
Not exactly convenient.
No. The big improvements came in the 19th century. Steel ribs made them stronger and lighter, and designs got much more compact. That's when they became the practical, everyday item we know.
And now we've got every size imaginable, tiny pocket ones, huge golf ones.
Right, all stemming from that ancient Chinese innovation of making them foldable and waterproof. It's a great example of refining an idea over centuries.
Definitely. Okay, last one. Let's talk about something that caused a surprising amount of fuss. The fork.
Oh, the fork. Yeah, people were not keen on it at first.
Its origins are where? Byzantium. Around the 4th century.
That's the general consensus. Early forks were quite small, usually just 2 prongs, and they were strictly luxury items used by the absolute elite to spear tricky bits of food, perhaps.
A status symbol again.
Yeah,
Because most people were just using...
hands, mostly, or maybe a spoon and a knife. Using a fork was seen as incredibly dainty, almost decadent.
So when they arrived in Europe, Venice, around the 11th century, they didn't get a warm welcome.
Not really. They were seen as pretentious, unnatural, even effeminate. There's a famous story about a Byzantine princess,
Oh, yeah.
Maria Argyropoulina. She married a Venetian doge's son in 1004 and apparently caused absolute shock by using her little golden fork at the wedding feast.
Shock. Over a fork.
Total shock. Some clergy members were reportedly horrified, calling it an affront to God, saying, God gave us fingers to eat with. Some even called the fork diabolical.
Diabolical. That's amazing. And that suspicion lasted for ages.
For centuries, yes. It just seemed alien and unnecessary to most people. It really shows how resistant cultures can be to changing basic habits.
So what was the turning point? How did the fork win?
A big push came in the 16th century, credited largely to Catherine de' Medici. When she married the French King Henry II in 1533, she brought her Italian customs, including forks, to the very influential French court.
Ah, fashion and courtly manners.
Hmm.
If the French court does it.
Exactly. That helped normalize it among the aristocracy across Europe. Trend setting, basically.
And then eventually people realized they were actually quite useful.
Pretty much. By the 17th century, concerns about hygiene were growing, and people started appreciating the precision forks offered. Then, in the 18th century, the design kind of standardized into the four-pronged version we mostly use today.
Making meals cleaner, more refined maybe.
Definitely. It really changed dining etiquette over time. And now, well, could you imagine eating most meals without one?
Not really. It's
Uh,
completely indispensable. What a journey from Byzantine gold to the kitchen drawer.
It really makes you think about how these everyday tools shape our behavior in subtle ways.
So wrapping this up, it's just fascinating, isn't it? All these completely ordinary items, pens, scissors, glasses, umbrellas, forks, they all represent incredible moments of human ingenuity.
Absolutely. People identifying a problem, messy writing, poor vision, getting wet, cutting things, eating cleanly, and coming up with a clever solution.
And seeing how culture plays a role too, that initial resistance to forks or umbrellas being seen as just for sun.
Right. And how ideas travel and get refined. From Egypt to Rome for scissors, from China to the world for umbrellas, Italy to everywhere for eyeglasses. It's a global story of innovation.
It really connects us to people centuries ago facing similar little daily challenges. It shows that capacity for creativity.
So maybe the takeaway is just to look around at the simple stuff we use every day. It wasn't always simple. There's a history there, often a really interesting one, full of trial and error and flashes of brilliance.
A great point. So maybe next time you pick up, I don't know, a safety pin or a zipper or even just a simple button.
Yeah, take a second. What problem did that solve? What journey did it take to end up in your hand? It's kind of fun to think about the hidden history all around us.